What's up, everybody? Welcome to Shock Talk by Game Time Sidekicks. Week 7 is in the books. Holy smokes! Where did all this? Let's just start it over. Let's just start the football season over, so that way it can last longer, and we won't have to be talking about how the season is already halfway over, more than halfway over now. But Week 7's in the books. This is Shop Talk. We are Game Time Sidekicks. Got my guys here with me, Clark and Derek. On a how y'all doing? First of all, I can answer that.
For right, better Mondays.
It feels different this week.
I think I can. Yeah,
I don't know.
On a much different level as far as enthusiasm for your team for sure. I think this is the first time we've done a podcast. Well, this is the first time we've ever done a podcast having Tennessee won a SEC game
Ever.
That's solid. And this is our second year now.
It feels weird to say.
It does. Like 2 years since 2016 before they won an SEC
And we
game.
just started this podcast last year, so
When
we never
was the
got
last time they beat a West opponent?
Oh, Lord.
I thought I heard that stat out there somewhere, and it was
a long time.
It's been a while.
Well, not just West, but even SEC game in general. Then you have West, a team from the West on the road as an underdog, and a team that honestly, which I guess this is a different discussion, but honestly, we thought going into the season that Auburn had fairly strong playoff chances. And Tennessee went in there. It was an 11 a.m. game, noon, depending on which time zone, and just balled, man. They looked good. So let's not get into that game right now. Let's start off with the Georgia LSU game.
You don't have to go there.
So if this is your first time listening, there's 3 of us here. I'm Tyler. I'm a Florida fan. Clark, we're based out of Knoxville. Clark here is a Tennessee fan, and Derek is a Bulldog fan, or at least he was. I'd say, Derek had all this is you getting a taste for what Clark and I have had, for years now. For a good that's not.
You've got to remember, I went through that taste before you all did when y'all used to pick on us in the 90s.
When we used to be good.
So I've already been through my taste of that. I don't want to go back through that taste.
Yeah. Well, all right.
Welcome to the club.
Yeah. Georgia, LSU, 36-16. I think it may have been a little closer game than that in some ways. Well, in some ways, I do think it was after about the first quarter, it was LSU just was able to have their way pretty substantially. But enough of me talking about Georgia LSU. Derek, give me, just what happened, man?
Well, the number one thing that jumps out at me, and it's an easy target, is Fromm. And it's not just, as we were talking earlier, it's not just this game. He's missing a lot of easy throws. He missed one at Missouri with Hardeman down the sideline. He missed Riley Ridley in the end zone against UT. He missed a few throws to take advantage of against Vandy. He's just not as sharp as he was last year. On the flip side of that is, I guess, maybe Fields just really isn't ready. But if I'm Fields now, I'm sitting here thinking, wow, a guy can play.
Am I ever going to get to play?
A guy can play that bad, and I still don't get a chance. So, yeah. Because it was at some point, what do you have to lose? To give him a series, give him a full series. Just don't give him a play.
Yeah.
What do you have to lose at that point? And I can't figure out, and I can't come up with a reasonable answer as to why you don't make that. Is the game going to get worse?
Yeah.
Doubtful. The other thing that was a little confusing to me is you watch stuff and it's like, oh, LSU's defense is dominant. Well, I guess they are.
They're good.
But at the same time, Swift averaged 7 yards a carry and Holyfield averaged 8 yards a carry. Why are they not running the ball more? Why do you run the ball all the way down the field to stop running the ball?
Yeah, I think from an outside perspective, they, I'm not up here like telling Kirby Smart everything he did wrong. I'm just some dude. But if we're talking about how the game went, I feel like they abandoned the run fairly quickly when it was having success.
That was the only thing they were having success doing. I don't know why they went away from it. So you look at like average yards per carry if you take out from sacks, and it's as good as LSU's is.
Yeah.
The other thing was there's a few things. The fake field goal was, I get when people say, "Oh, it's a great call if it works." No, it's not. It would still been stupid. Because
it's not 4th and 1, it's 4th and 9.
Right, and you're playing against a team that has a ton of defensive speed and talent.
Yeah.
And at that point,
they're so fast.
At that point, it'd be one thing if you'd already been down there and you walked away with 2 field goals. At that time, it's a 3-0 game.
Yeah.
Get it tied.
Yeah.
Get it tied. Get the fans a little bit more taken out of it. That was just, you've got to have, and that's what Kirby doesn't have yet, is the feel for some of those timely calls. And I think he'll get them. I mean, because I see some stuff and they're like, oh, see, we got Mark Richt again. And it's kind of like, well, let's not take the sample size of one game. They had a bad game. It was anything that could go wrong went wrong.
Yeah.
And the last thing was our defense. I thought at times we looked good, and then we just couldn't get off the field.
Give up 475 yards.
Yeah, which is bad.
200 passing, 275 rushing, which is the surprising part.
Yeah, well, the thing that gets me is you've got 3rd and 1, they're running it, and you give up a 47-yard run.
Mm-hmm.
That's not a Georgia defense.
Yeah.
Those were the things that stuck out to me. But, when I went to bed Saturday night, I thought, man, this team is really bad. But then you wake up Sunday and you start to think, well, I remember last year at the Auburn game, and early in the game, from Mrs. Ridley going right down the middle of the field, and then the floodgates opened.
Yeah.
We got beat 40-17.
Yeah.
So I think at times you can put it
We were at that game.
a little bit too much into it.
Because
when they got beat 40-17, if at that time you'd have said, you know what, I bet they take Alabama to overtime and Alabama throws a bomb to beat them.
Who?
And they make the playoffs.
Yeah, nobody would have taken. They would have said you're crazy.
Yeah.
So, but at this point, I guess what I want to see is I think you have to try something, and I think this is, a lot of people are saying it. I'm not saying anything new, but this is why Kirby Smart's not Nick Saban. He had an opportunity to make a tough call to try to find a spark for his team. And he even said so in his press conference. He said, yeah, if we thought if Fields could have given us a spark, well, here's your spark. He didn't have a negative yard play, and Fromm did. That should be all you need to know about that situation.
I think that's something that even I noticed, is that when he's in, even your running game is better.
Of course, you've got to respect that.
When everyone knows either he's running or it's a back, because they just don't let him. When you create that pattern of come in the game, run the ball, like.
Well, and eyes start to get wondering as a DB. Your eyes start to get to be where they're not supposed to. If a quarterback hits a few runs on you in passing situations when you're in coverage, then all of a sudden your safeties are going to start looking probably where they shouldn't be looking.
Yeah.
And I just, for the life of me, I truly can't figure out. I guess it's 2 things. One, it's got to be 1 or 2 things. There's either some type of infatuation with Jake Fromm. And the thing is, let's not forget, I mean, Fromm was good last year and he stepped up and made big plays, but it wasn't like he was in the Heisman race. It wasn't like he was an all-SEC quarterback. He just made enough plays not to get them beat, and they also had Sony Michel, who, as we can tell, is legit, and Nick Chubb, and they had a defense. So this whole thought was he won these games. Well, did he win those games last year? Or did their defense and their running game, and he was just a part of it?
Yeah.
And I think that's much more so the case from what I can see.
Yeah.
And right now they can't do that. They can't. They've got to have a difference maker. and not just a role player.
Yeah, I think we were talking about this earlier, and I agree. I think I try my best not to like play Sunday morning quarterback or armchair quarterback. Like I know those guys know more than me, but even they, I have the luxury of hindsight. We all do watching this game, but even they sometimes, they wouldn't do things the same. If you gave Kirby that game over, knowing what he knows now, he wouldn't do things the same. So like, with that being said, like I really think it was time to bring Fields in. But let me argue the other side just for a second. Like we were saying earlier, if you bring him in like that, if you know he's going to be your guy either halfway through this season or next season, or if you know he's going to be really good, are you somewhat concerned with putting him in down 2 touchdowns on the road versus LSU and just kind of hurting his development, I guess you could say? Because that mean you basically said, oh, okay, go in an impossible situation, like putting a quarterback in when it's 3rd and long. Like you've not created a great situation for them. Maybe he was thinking that. I don't know.
I mean, I do understand that, and I think that's a lot more, especially like when we were that age. That was kind of the rule of thumb. These kids today, they're so confident.
Yeah.
And really they are so game ready. I mean, the game has evolved at a high school level where kids are coming out right now and they're ready to be plugged right in. And I think he is. I think my worry is either twofold. One, either Fields is probably not going to get a fair crack at it, or two, I guess the other side is maybe he's not good enough to play better than what Fromm did. Maybe if he's not better than that, that's a scary,
Kirby sees
scary
practice.
thing.
I mean, I don't know. I think I'm not sure where that quarterback situation goes from here. But like you mentioned about the Auburn game, I think it's one game. Even now, you can say this for a lot of teams, but not a lot of teams with Georgia's ability that still control their own destiny. They'll be if they win every game, they'll be right there in the playoffs.
They are.
This won't be a blip on the radar.
That's
but
right.
What for me, because I was kind of hoping we could get another SEC team in the playoffs. I thought Georgia was our best shot besides Alabama. For me, that makes it a little less likely now because my hope was that undefeated Georgia, undefeated Alabama play in the SEC championship game, assuming Alabama's going to get there. And it's a close game, and both of them get in the playoffs. Now, Georgia would have to win that game
for both of them,
for both of them to be in the playoffs.
But honestly, I think the
know.
way it goes, I think the only way, and I've kind of felt this from the get-go, the only way we got 2 teams in it is if it was Alabama got beat. Alabama got beat. It wouldn't. To me, it wouldn't have mattered if Georgia was undefeated going into that. If they would have lost Alabama, it would have been a one team. Georgia doesn't have the pull that Alabama does. They don't have the influence, and rightly so. I mean, Alabama's proven it year after year after year after year after year. I don't think that they get. I think regardless, I think Georgia's in the same boat that they were before the game. The only problem is now what we've kind of been talking about. They don't look as good as what they should is a reality. They're not as good as what everybody thought they were.
But playing hypothetical situations, do you think that if Georgia is to win the SEC without losing any of their games, do you think that it's possible for 2 one-loss teams from the SEC to get in the playoffs?
If Georgia, if Georgia comes back in, or say even Florida, Georgia, whoever
now we're
right
getting
now
into
with
some
hypotheticals.
hypotheticals.
Kentucky, well, no, Kentucky's got 2.
They only have 1.
Say
but
any of
they
those
would
teams,
have
any team from the East gets all the way through
to the SEC championship game
with one loss
and
wins.
Alabama's undefeated, and they beat Alabama.
Mm-hmm.
Oh heck, yeah.
You're getting 2
That's
teams.
happening. Let me process that for a second. Here's the kicker that kind of throws a wrench in that situation. An undefeated we can go down a rabbit trail with hypothetical playoff situations, but the kind of what throws a wrench in that is an undefeated Notre Dame.
Well,
because you would have just say Notre Dame,
I don't know that it
Clemson.
would.
Yeah,
because you've got Clemson and Notre Dame, the Pac
and Ohio State.
10 or Pac-12 is out.
I'm assuming.
Ohio State,
I'm assuming Ohio
So if
State
you've got
makes
Ohio
it.
State, Clemson, and Notre Dame all undefeated, how do you not put
You're
those
not
three?
getting-
That's right.
you're not getting
Ohio
a
State was
one-loss.
the team I forgot about.
Yeah.
I was looking at that earlier, and the Big 12's out of it now. the Pac-10's out of it now, and if Ohio State gets beat, they're probably – but they've already played Penn State. I don't know who –
Yeah,
I guess they have Michigan.
They still have Michigan to play. So the good thing is a one-loss SEC team is getting in before a one-loss, Ohio State or Michigan or whatever. So anyway, enough of that. We'll have plenty of time to do hypothetical playoff scenarios, which are so fun, but end up being like a little bit of a waste because like people always lose, and like I don't know. I want to let a couple more weeks develop before we get into the playoff thing, but it's easy